Good evening,
Hey,
Josh. How are you, buddy?
I'm all right. How are you?
Good, brother. Good to connect with you. Thanks so much for doing this conversation tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, how's the audio? Okay.
Sounds good to me. Yeah, sounds
Awesome,
good.
brother. If it works and it's no hassle, see if you can record, and then we'll try to connect later. But if it's too, I'm gonna.
Moment.
Okay, I think I did it. Hopefully it works. But either way, we'll do what we can. So awesome, brother. So I found you on TikTok, man, and the big reason why I wanted to reach out to you is I can tell you're a thinker. I think you like philosophy as well. You also are a mentor and a bit of a coach. And so tonight I kind of want to talk a little bit about like your journey on TikTok, what you're doing on there, a little bit of like your vision for your work, your videos, so on and so forth. And then we'll kind of lead it into the 3 topics of discussion like we had mentioned before.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah. So, I started making content years ago. I've been making content of one sort or another for a long, long time. Things took off on TikTok about a month or so into the pandemic.
Yeah, man, you're blowing up on there, right?
yeah, it's been pretty wild. It's a real wild ride to follow along with all of this.
Yeah.
And it's been utterly delightful. I don't think I've had a conversation with somebody that I didn't want to talk to.
Mm-hmm. That's always nice.
Anything that came out of this, yeah, it's amazing because I'm chasing away anybody that I wouldn't want to talk to.
Yeah,
which is great. You know,
absolutely, brother.
Polarization is powerful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've been really kind of grinding on it where I'm trying to, I've found that, hey, this works. People want to see what I have to say and they want to see what I can share. So I'm spending a lot of my time trying to figure out, what types of things are useful for people.
Yeah.
And then trying to figure out, how to, optimize the process. Ultimately, it's also a business, which means it needs to be efficient to some degree.
Yeah.
So I've been spending a lot of time working on those sorts of things and spending a lot of time coaching.
Yeah.
And I've been, booked out a lot of weeks doing coaching, and it's amazingly positive.
Yeah. That's awesome, brother. So I guess in a sentence or two, because you're really concise. I love how you speak. It's very like A, B, C, D. It makes a lot of sense. How would you explain to the audience a little bit about who you are and what you do as far as like your vision?
You're right. I'm a thinker. That's something that I try to spend a lot of time doing. I enjoy doing it, and I think there's a lot to come from it. I'm a musician. That's my academic education. It's mostly in music. But I'm somebody who studied music intensely, and then I worked for years as a music teacher, and during that time I was studying lots of other subjects, kind of broadly, because I like a lot of subjects.
Yeah.
And from there, going to work all the time, listening to podcasts. I was obsessed with podcasts made in the Silicon Valley area, about tech and startups. And I grew to have a really big interest in systems from that.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of built out to the interest that I've always had, which is people.
Yeah.
And trying to understand, how we can operate better. This is essentially what I came down to.
Yeah.
Interested in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of where I'm at now. Is I'm interested in helping people operate better.
So basically kind of like the journey of humanity, if you will.
Yeah. People are fucking fascinating.
Yeah, for sure, brother.
Yeah, and I've through the years, I mean, part of it is natural inclination, right? We all have some natural inclination. So in childhood, I was the type of kid that would sort of imagine conversations with not imaginary people, but with friends. Like I would sort of like make up events where we would have conversation. And I think that was me sort of back testing everything that I'd learned, trying to try to figure out how people work.
Yeah.
So I've had an interest in it for a long time.
Yeah.
And to tie this in with investing, that's ended up being a big strength for me. Is over the years I've been fascinated by how people work, and now the way I invest is oftentimes based on what I think, how people think.
Yeah.
And people are doing.
Yeah.
I'm interested in the psychological aspect of
it. Absolutely, brother. And that's one of the big reasons that I was connected to you, because, the first thing that you notice on TikTok really quick, and then we'll get into our 3 points for tonight, is that, you see the dancers and the entertainers are blowing up on TikTok. But then I saw, you, who's more of a thinker, more of a practitioner of the mind, engaging mindfulness in different aspects, different intellectualization process. And I was really fascinated because I think are you up to 500,000 now?
Close. I think almost 450.
Absolutely. So obviously the numbers naturally stand out because that's kind of how we are, right? But more importantly, when I was listening and watching some of your videos, I heard a lot of the philosophical process behind what you do, and I thought that was really fascinating. And now that you mentioned specifically that you're bringing that into your investing game, that's a whole another cup of tea that I think a lot of people put on the back burner, because short-term traders, we're looking a lot at patterns, techniques, repetitious things, versus the other aspect, which I think maybe you'd be more on the Warren Buffett way of thinking, if you will. You're kind of looking at like the psychology of trading in itself, right?
Yeah. So I think numbers are great, and I still look at numbers from time to time, but I think there are other aspects of things that are going on right now that are also influencing our lives. And a big one is I think that we're not accounting enough for the strange anomaly characters, people that will deliver no matter what. And that's why I'm fascinated by people like Elon Musk, Chamath Palihapitiya, Jack Dorsey, Peter Thiel. These sort of people, they interest me because if you were to look at, say, Austrian economics, I think has a lot of sanity in it, and according to Austrian economics, our economy should be dead now.
Yeah.
Everything should have crashed. It's over. But it's not. People are still going. And I think one of the things that they don't factor in is the people that won't stop. And if you look back in history and you look at who's in the history books, it's a lot of the people that formed our history were great generals and great leaders. And it's Alexander the Great, and there's a story of Alexander the Great where he was marching with his army, and they were low on water, and one of the soldiers went from soldier to soldier collecting water in a shield, trying to get just enough water to have a drink for Alexander the Great.
Mm-hmm.
And the soldier very respectfully brought it up to him, and Alexander the Great looked at it, dropped it into the ground, and said, "I'm not going to drink until everybody else is going to drink."
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that's more an Iron Man fan that gets pissed off by this because I'm like, well, we could have at least used it, right?
Yeah.
But the motive behind this way of thinking is a sort of high drive to push forwards that's almost unfathomable.
Yeah.
People that are willing to push that hard and keep going, they drive our society forwards in ways that we do not put in our economics books, that we do not put in our, whatever you want to call your decision book.
Yeah.
Like we don't factor it into our computations. And so I'm very interested in a lot of my investments have been based off of finding people like that.
Yeah.
And looking at the company, but looking at the company in the context of the company combined with the entity. Because a lot of us really, really like to, what's the word? We discredit how important it is. Because we're like, oh, it's thousands of people, right? And true, it's thousands of people. There's no way Elon Musk could make a Tesla by himself. That's not going to happen. But these people are a symbology. Actually, they're a symbology that allow people to achieve them.
Yeah.
So I think that it's actually a big factor in investing.
Absolutely, brother. And so one of the words that's coming up while listening to this is actually you did a video on it, productivity. So why don't you share a little bit of that in relationship to what we're talking about? You did a video about productivity, but also this notion of Alexander the Great. Where do you kind of tie that in there?
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, productivity comes from small, pathetic things. I really believe in the small, pathetic things. And these greats, they do too. Productivity comes most of the time, so far as I can tell, from doing something that is underneath your current capability and pointed towards an achievement that is beyond your imagination.
Yeah.
So you do something that is well within your scope, well within your realm of expertise. And you do it well, you do it a lot, and you do it many, many times more than other people will. And then you set it up in such a way that it can point towards positive. And then you kind of let it ride.
Yeah.
You don't hold on to the dream at the end. You actually you hold on to the little pieces. Now there's another factor of this. Since I brought up Elon Musk, let's go with that. So Elon Musk talks about getting turning us into a multiplanetary species, getting on Mars, right? So that's the dream.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different. That once again is symbology. So that's something that gives us meaning and gives us purpose. So dreams, I think, are useful for that concept, but it's very damaging to have your mind too focused on the dream, where it's like, okay, how do I get to Mars? Where it's like, let me try to do something really big to do it. When really what you need to do is you need to figure out a slight change in the angle of one fin of the rocket. That's what you need to be spending your time doing. So I think productivity comes a lot from that, and I think it comes a lot from system thinking. So it's you boost your productivity by working on things within your realm, and that speeds you up. Once you are sped up, then you can look at yourself from more of a third-person perspective, because you're not so attached to what you're working on. Because when you're working on something for a long time, you get attached to it, so you lose perspective. So if you're working on it quickly and shoving it out the door, you move backwards and you look at it from a different perspective, and that perspective is more detached. It's there's less emotion involved, and you can think of it more as a system. You can think of yourself more as a system. So you start turning yourself into a bit of a machine, and that enables you to make tweaks on the activities that you're doing from a systems mindset. And I think that's a real recipe to getting yourself, delivering.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. So with that in mind, for you personally, where would you say you get your perseverance or your passion or your fuel to keep you, because posting, giving, serving, sharing, learning, educating, all that?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'd say a big part of it comes from self-care. Um, it's unfortunate that, I don't like the word because it sounds funny. And a lot of us don't like that word.
Yeah.
But the reality is boundaries and caring for your human self is remarkably valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And the perspective I look at it from is most humans want to achieve. I could be wrong, but I think that most humans want to do something. I think they want to do something meaningful and somewhat bigger than themselves. I'm not saying they all want to go on some giant epic journey, but they want to do something worthwhile and worthy. And if that's the case, if that's your desire, then making yourself the most functional that you could be is the answer. Because if you're functional, you're going to go towards your desire, right? So if your desire is to go make something cool, then the goal isn't make something cool. The goal is be functional.
Yeah.
So right now, like beside the day or two that I missed on purpose to see what the results would be, like I haven't missed a post since this all started, and I've been doing a lot of other things. The workload is intense.
Yeah,
it's really something to experience. I mean, it's great. I'm thrilled to be here, but it's like, of course, it's a lot, right? It's like,
yeah,
you get hired to be in a big movie and you're stoked, but
yeah,
you got to do the movie. It's hard.
Yeah, for sure, brother.
Yeah. So like what's happening is incredible, but it's a lot. And I've been meditating more than I think I've ever meditated in the past couple of months.
Mm-hmm.
I've been going on more walks. I've been just going and doing things that are reserving time for me to stop and think. And that has been a critical element in making all of this work. Because the thing is I know that I want to do this.
Yeah.
So that means that if I stop doing it, it's not because I don't want to, because something else failed. And generally that's functionality. So I'm trying to work on that aspect of just caring for my functionality.
Yeah.
And there was one other thing that was going on.
No worries, brother. So something that I've been really fascinated, I've been talking with a lot of the students within our community about this, and you have to face this a lot in trading, but from when you started your journey on TikTok and kind of push forward and continue to create, speaking about discipline and productivity and so on and so forth, obviously from step one to now, there's always going to be elements of fear, right? A lot of times people, even me, a lot of people look at us, I think sometimes as, quote unquote influencers or whatever people want to call us. And they think that like we're just at the end point and that there's no struggle or hardship along the way. But I'm curious what you have to say about specifically like where fear meets discipline and productivity from your own personal perspective.
I am afraid. I will say that straight up. And I will say that straight up because I think it makes me more functional to do so. Like I said, I'm a musician and I've spent a lot of time on stage. One of the things you have to deal with when you're on stage is stage fright. And one of the most effective tool that I know of for dealing with fear is knowing that fear releases the same chemicals in your body as excitement. Mm. So you can actually trick your brain into, you can convince it that you're excited. Yeah. So that's a phenomenal hack. But besides that, the thing that I know of that's the most effective is when I would walk on stage and I would have a day where I was like a little intimidated and be like, oh man, stage fright's getting to me today. Like I'd notice that. Like, ooh, this might not be good.
Yeah.
I would walk up to the mic as quickly as I could, and I would say, "Hi, everybody. Wow, I'm scared." And I mean, what happens? I mean, in that kind of a setting, like usually you get some people on your side, right? Because if you're open, people want you to win, right?
Yeah.
So I'd get some positive feedback. But also, this goes to a Brene Brown concept, which is openness, vulnerability, exposing shame dissipates shame.
Yeah.
So if you speak about something that you're concerned about, you can let it go a little bit more easily. So I'd say with fear, the number one thing is to address it head on. And I don't mean you have to bull your way through it. I mean, you have to recognize it for what it is. And I think that is really, really a big factor in dealing with fear in any context. Is going, instead of, all right, I'm not going to be afraid. No, I'm not afraid. I'm not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be like, I'm fucking afraid.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's all sorts of things that are going on right now in my life that are super overwhelming. I mean, like I said, it's a lot going on. And I had a conversation with a friend recently that he said something really cool, which was, he said, success might be harder than failure. And that's not a sort of thing that you hear very often. But the way he explained it was, failure is normal in the sense that failure is something that you're used to.
Yeah.
Success is actually the unknown. And every time you achieve success, it is by definition another unknown. Because what it means is you've gone towards a thing that you were seeking, which means naturally it's something that you haven't had yet because you were seeking it, right? So it's not what you're used to. So the footing of having good things happen is remarkably scary in and of itself. And this happens when you do a trade too, right? So it's like you start seeing green, you start seeing things go up. It doesn't mean you're magically brilliant and solid and relaxed all of a sudden. You're going, oh fuck. Should I sell? Should I buy more? Should I hold? What's going on? I don't know. Like to me, green is one of the scariest colors now. So it's like, you know, like I see that and it's like, well, what should I do now? You know,
absolutely.
I mean, it's great. We want green.
Absolutely.
Right. It's good. But it's not a given that you just all of a sudden know how to deal with it.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of things that it's not a given we know how to deal with right away.
Absolutely, brother. Yeah, no, it's perfectly and well said. I was going to ask you, brother, because I want to respect your time this evening. You're doing okay with time?
Yeah, I can go a good another 15 minutes.
Okay, great. So
for you?
Yeah, that's great, brother. So yeah, no, I think, and the other thing that I've been coming into a lot more is that, so before I was trading, or I'd say so I've been trading for around 5 years. And it's the profession which has forced me to look at fear the most intensely and the most deeply ever, because I grew up always succeeding. I was one of those kids that was top of the class. Every friend that I won, I got. Every relationship that I wanted to gauge, I achieved. Sports, so on. So when I came to trading, I got smacked in the face with fear and hard, because every single trade, for me at least, and it wasn't even about like making or losing the money. It was just the fact of failing or feeling like failing. And so for me, this profession has really, I don't want to say weeded out most of my fear, because a person's, I think, always going to have fear. But what it's forced me to do specifically is with each and every trade, I have to look at that fear one more time, because every trade, no guarantee, right? It's either going to be green, nothing, or red. And so I think it's really interesting within the realm of investing and trading, because it's like a a practical guide every single day, pushing you to expose yourself to trading or expose yourself to fear rather than the fight or flight dynamic, if you know what I mean.
All right, so let's talk about cold showers.
Sure, man.
Because I mean, what you're talking about here is difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, fear is the anticipation of the difficulty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fear is a potential oncoming difficulty that we don't want. And sometimes when investing, you do get difficult, you know, shit goes wrong. So, difficulty is another thing that can be trained in. And I joke about the cold shower because to me, that's the classic example. That's the most straightforward one. And you learn how to achieve, you can extrapolate that out to everything else. It's amazing how effective it is. So it's like when you go to take a cold shower, what's happening here? Like a cold shower, technically speaking, cold is the big black. Cold is death, right? Like we know this on a fundamental DNA level. Cold is the deep dark underworld that, you know, we're running from.
Mm-hmm.
So when we step into a cold shower, we're getting signals of discomfort that say, hey, the big black might be coming. You might be in grave danger here. And if you're in a safe scenario, like a shower, you know, you're in your house, you're not in the Arctic, you can turn the tap whenever you want back to warm. Then what you're doing is you're voluntarily setting up a situation where you're in discomfort, but you're not in harm. And you're teaching yourself that you can handle discomfort without being harmed.
Yeah.
You're teaching yourself that you can, essentially, you're reinforcing to yourself, hey, you can survive. And I think this is a fundamental concept that applies just across the board, just about anything you try to approach. So with investing, it's like when you understand that fear is this like worry about the discomfort that's coming that might be harm, like see how it's kind of like these steps, right? Then you can recognize it for what it is more clearly. It's not this like irrational fear where it's like, I don't know what this is, it's overcoming me and I'm just going to behave according to my fear. You go, oh, I see, I'm having this onset of emotions that's based on my concern that something bad is going to happen and that it's going to harm me. And then when you know that, then you can sit in it and you can decide, because you've proven to yourself over and over again in other scenarios, hey, you can handle discomfort, which means that now you get to choose instead of make a decision against your own will.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And when you do that, you habituate into the positive direction. And this is what I see all the time, is that people impulsively, or, you know, I do it sometimes, obviously, because I'm human, so I won't exclude myself out of the party, but we impulsively take that action towards the fear, and then what do? We reinforce it. And if a person does this enough times, it just keeps building and building and building and building. And eventually I think a person either gets to that point where they just live their whole life like that, or hopefully they kind of smack the wall and realize, hey,
yes,
I've been living.
I call this letting the anxiety lead. So it's like what you can do is you can, like you said, you can reinforce that when you move away from discomfort, you survive. And you can prove it true, because it's like, well, you moved away from discomfort and here you are, alive. You're not dead. Good things happen. And you're not in discomfort anymore. But the problem is there's no limit to discomfort. And your life can be amazing. And you can have the tiniest little thing go wrong and be uncomfortable. And now your life is in shambles again.
Yeah.
So you have to move towards discomfort instead of away from it. And yeah, I call it letting the anxiety lead, because it's like you can't let your anxiety become the primary decision maker.
Yeah.
Because if it does, then the anxiety starts to believe that it's right in all circumstances.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And you have to you have to tell it to step aside sometimes. And then the voice grows quieter and quieter.
Yeah.
And you never are without anxiety. That's not a thing. But you can get to a place where you're comfortable with your anxiety.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for that reason, if we kind of put it to like long-term, short-term, I kind of consider myself like a short-term master, if you will, in the market, right? We do day trading and short-term swing trades, but in a sense, I'd actually prefer to push people in the direction of long-term, because I think long-term mindset, long-term psychology is what grows our sense of humanity, rather than this quick, I don't want to call it a quick fix, but this moment in time, which is so small that if you can't continue to repeat it over the course of your lifetime, it becomes incredibly difficult, which is why I think so many people within this space of investing fail at the short term, because very few people can do it well.
I agree. I think a long-term trader could trade short-term better than a short-term trader in some context. I mean, not all the time, but like, you're right. Like those principles can be narrowed once you know them to shorter and shorter time scale. And I was amazed. I shouldn't have been. Like, I know that this is how people work, but it was so funny. Like, I was amazed at how, like, as soon as I threw out a ticker symbol in content that I was creating, as soon as I threw out an actual ticker symbol, the whole thing turned into comments that sounded like a football game.
Yeah.
Like, so quickly. And it was like, I haven't thrown out many ticker symbols, but I was talking about some things in context of like 4 to 5 years, that kind of a thing. And I was getting comments the next day about what had happened to the stock, and I was like, I don't care. I mean, it's cool if it goes up, but like, that wasn't what I was talking about. And our time skills are, I think by default for just somebody automatically, our time scales are super shrunk.
Yeah.
And for us to stretch it out, I think it only benefits us. I mean, there are times when stretching your time scale can be detrimental, because if you think in long time scale all the time, you can forget how to live in the moment, and that's really problematic. In relationships, really, really important to be in the moment. And in reacting real time, like you said, if you're day trading, like, there are times when you need to react in real time to something that's happened. And if you're too attached to the long term, you might not react correctly. So there are aspects of living in the moment that are important to hang on to, but I don't see something detrimental about gaining more perspective on the long term. Yeah,
100%, brother. Yeah, Josh. Hey, man, well, today was an incredible conversation, my man. Is there anything else you wanted to chat about before we kind of put the cherry on the banana split for today?
No, not much. Just find me on TikTok, find me on Instagram. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, brother. Absolutely. We'll be in touch, man. Where are you based out of, by the way?
Austin, Texas.
Awesome, man. I'm currently in the Riviera Maya of Cancun, so we're pretty far away, but we'll be in touch, my man.
Sounds good.
You take care, brother.
All right, have a good one.